please. Hello, everyone. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kolade Wolala Felix, and I'll be anchoring today's training session. Once again, I want to welcome every one of us to this training section that has been organized by SP Lagos Section 61. I want to believe that we got the pre-document that was sent to us as per the way to prepare for this training section. I want to believe we all got the document that was sent to us. So without much ado, we'll be starting right away. I'm sure we have read a bit of the biography of the tutor in person of Engineer Houston Efe. He's an engineer with NNPCL, and he will be the one to take us through this training. I can assure you that he knows his onions, and it promises to be a very educative and enlightening session. So I would just advise us to please let's pay attention, and so that we can derive adequate value from this training session that has been put together for us. So once again, I would like to welcome Engineer Efe. Please, you can have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kolade, and good evening, everyone. Or I say good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining from. My name is Elston, if you would equal, like Kolade has said, and I'm so excited to go on this Python journey with you. I have a few slides to share before we go down into programming. The brief I got is that this course is for beginners, and there'll be subsequent courses for other aspects of Python. So I'll just share my screen now. Okay. Kolade, can you, is my screen visible?
Yes, we can see your screen now, sir.
Okay, awesome. So once again, welcome to this lecture on Python. And as an icebreaker, I would quote this: learning to code is useful no matter what your career ambitions are. So this is from the Huffington Post. Really, programming, like I said, after you learn the language, the next thing you need to do is learn how to code. So characteristically, you don't necessarily have to be a techie to program. Programming is like a language for everybody. So just a brief of my own background. I didn't really do much programming in school. A lot of the programming I had to do was when I started working, when I was in the telecom space, having to do a lot with data, I picked interest in programming. So you can learn how to code. Having a layer of coding to your existing career is a major booster. So what brought us here is Python. So just for us to just cool down, is it a myth or a reality? Python, the programming language, renamed after animal. Can I get a response from people? Just put it on the chat. Is Python programming language renamed after animal? What do you think? I know you're new to programming, you're new to Python, or you've had experience. Can you just please share? So when you hear Python programming, is it animal? I appreciate if you can just put something in the chat. Just know you're here. So is it a myth or a reality? So Python, the program language, is it named after the animal? True or false? Myth or reality? I'm still trying to look for here the responses. Okay. Okay, so we have false. Okay, so that's a good one from I am perceived people. Okay, let me just move on. So no, so it's actually named after a comedy skit in the BBC. So a few things we need to know about Python, just as a trivia. It was released in 1990, and this guy here, looking at him, is actually the one who brought out the first Python code. And the objective of Python for him was to make it an intuitive language. So intuitive is, even if you have no idea about programming or you have no idea about what Python is, you should have a bit of inkling to know what is actually written. The second thing is he wanted it to be open source, so anybody can easily contribute to it. So I wake up one morning, I've done something in Python, I can include it to the general code for Python. And also he wanted Python to be used for everyday tasks. So he wanted a wide reach for Python. So that was basically the objective of Python. So it's something that is easy to use. Anybody can contribute to it, and it has a wide application. So is Python just a buzzword? Like everybody's talking about Python these days. It's very popular. Your people in data science, machine learning, and all of that. It's really, really a popular buzzword today. So that's popularity is really what it. So this you can see here. It starts from TIOBE. So TIOBE is basically a web ranking site that ranks programming language based on their popularity. It ranks over 50 programming languages based on how they are used, who is using them, and who is employing people who are using them. So currently Python, as at today, is ranked #1 programming language. And considering the use of ML, data science, this number is expected to grow even to the nearest future. So it's not just a buzzword, it's really, really a popular language across the programming cycle. So why then should I learn Python? I work in the oil and gas industry. I might not necessarily go into full-time programming. Okay. Actually, Python is easy and intuitive. Like you see the objective of the creator. So it's one of the easiest language. In fact, most code teacher will tell you if you are learning code for the very first time, it's actually good to learn Python, but it's actually very easy. Now, because of its open source nature, it has an extensive library. So a lot of people have actually contributed to Python itself. So you have Python for everything. Python for image processing, Python for data science, Python for web, a lot of things. It's has a rich documentation. So people have written a lot about Python and its library. So you can find information about Python everywhere. On that thing is the amazing community. So you have a lot of people contributing to Python, people who are willing to help because of the open source nature. Now, Python has a wide reach. Like we said, Python can be used for artificial intelligence, for the new field called quantum computing, for web development if you are in back end. So for automation scripts, people who are doing cloud technology want to deploy a lot of servers. It's actually a very, very important programming language in that aspect. For blockchain, we heard was about cryptocurrency, the blockchain, and all of that. Python is actually filling the blaze. You also have ethical hacking, then also web scripting. So if you want to probably harvest data from a website, Python has a very, very rich library in which you can do that. So for this class, it's basically for beginners. So the essence of this class in general is to give you the building blocks for which you can build on your data science, your ML, if you choose to go into back-end web development. So the course will be delivered in 3 phases. So we have Microsoft PowerPoint presentation, like I'm doing, just to give you an inkling of what Python is all about. And then we'll have the hands-on coding, and subsequently we'll have an in-class quiz. So that's the basics. So when you say a computer program, so we are talking Python is a programming language. It's simply like the way you have a recipe that tells you what you need to do to cook a good dish. So also in programming, the program is just a set of instructions that tells your computer what to do. So it's actually similar to a typical human language. Like you have English, you have Yoruba, and a host of other languages. So as we have languages and languages have rules, so also programs have rules. So typically you can look at syntax. Take for example, you have a Concord rule in English, where you have to have agreement between subject and verb. So also in written programs, in programming, you also have to know what you call the specific syntax. Then another thing to know about coding is what you call semantics. So just as you have, depending on how you use a particular word combination or even punctuation, it could actually mean different meanings in English language. So also it is in programming. So you can mean it something different and your program is saying something different. So these are 2 things you should take note of: syntax and semantics. While your program will be forgiving of semantics, but syntax is going to point out to you. For semantics, you might not know if you made an error until your program starts acting up. So let's take a little breather and just so it's just something for us to play around with. So just talking about semantics. So look at this picture here. So this mother is calling her children to eat, and if it's written as time to eat children, it simply means the children is actually the dinner or the breakfast. But this second sentence simply says calling the children to come and eat. So that's what semantics is. While both statements are actually correct in English language, the meanings they convey are quite different. This is also a second one, just to ease the tension. A man eating chicken. So, and the same combination of words, just the hyphen makes a whole lot of difference. For this, we are saying having these 2 fellows as food, while the other one, they are actually ones having the chicken for food. So the semantic error, that's what it means. So you program something, it's correct, it's running, however, what you intended for the program to achieve is quite different. So now, so does my computer understand English? Since I said programming languages, they are written like human languages. So does it really understand English? Actually, no. So that's why you see the capital in here. So typically, your program wants to interact with CPU. Your CPU is it's simply an electronic chip. It does not understand English. All it understands is signal, whether I have signals or I don't have signals. These signals, based on the operating system, can interact with your operating system through what you call a machine code. So typically, you as a programmer or as a Python programmer, you want to code in human readable form. Then you have a host of other things that help you convert what you've coded in English to machine code readable by your CPU. So that brings us to the next point, which is the prerequisite that was earlier shared. So since your computer cannot understand English, you need an interface. And that interface is what you call the interpreter. So this was earlier shared, and just for the sake of this class, we can, if you've not downloaded it, it's not, you can easily just head over to python.org and python.org and download it. So go to downloads, and then you can click on this to download the Python. So if you downloaded Python on your computer, if you use Windows, you can simply come to your command line prompt by going to your search bar here, type in command, and then you type the command Python. And if you have Python installed, you should see something like this on your computer. So pardon me, I'll be switching between different windows. So if you see me, please call my attention. Okay. So if you have Python on your computer, you see this here. So what basically is this thing you see helps you interpret whatever you write in English language to a form understandable by your computer. So with this, I can simply write expressions, and it can evaluate those expressions to my terminal windows. So I'll stop here for a minute, and if we probably have any question, probably you've tried to install this and you're having a challenge, and there is any question or any challenge.
On engineer, if somebody said he has a Mac OS, what do you have to say to that?
Okay. So if you have a Mac OS, I think I actually wrote for Mac OS, just locate terminal where you have your search, and so where you have your search, just type in terminal over there, and then you type in Python 3 or Python and I don't know if that answers the question. I don't use a Mac OS, but however, if you search your terminal for terminal, you should get that. It's okay. Hello, it's okay. 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 So okay. Any other challenge? Any other person with challenge? Okay. So I'll go back to the slide presentation. So with the terminal windows, actually do, okay, I see a question. Okay, so how do you open it after installation? So go to command line, CMD, if you are using Windows, to bring in this black terminal, as you can see on my screen, something like this with a blinking point. Okay, so locate terminal windows, or I'll just Google it. Let me just Google it here. So let's say notepad. Locating terminal. How to locate terminal in this map. It said go to command button, press the command button and the space bar. Command button and the space bar. That's command button and space bar. When you do that, just type in Python. You see something similar to this. Python, you see something similar to this. See having challenge? Can I get a so you shouldn't open the Python launcher. All you need to open is your terminal windows, terminal, CMD. Python launcher is quite different. If I type in Python, you see something like this, but this is not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the terminal window because that's what we'll use a lot here in this programming. Hello? Okay. Maybe we can talk after this session if the okay, awesome. Awesome. Okay. So typically, as you can see, you can actually write commands in terminal windows, say 4+3. You can print to terminal and a whole lot of stuff. But in reality, you can't be writing programs like this. Programs are typically not written like this. So typically we use what you call the code editor or the IDE. So code editors, they allow you to format your code properly and they give you a lot of functionalities not available on terminal windows. And one such code editor is the VS Code, which was part of the pre-read, Visual Studio Code. So it's done by Microsoft. We'll be using this majorly to write all our codes. So click on it to take you to code.visualstudio.com. You can download Visual Studio that is suitable for your computer. So you can download for Windows. You can choose to download for Mac OS, depending on the one you have. So I'll just give a few minutes for people to just download if they've not downloaded. So 2-3 minutes for us to download it and then install the Mac OS code of Visual Studio. Thank you very much. So you can download it. Henceforth, to be using VS Code. So VS Code, when it's installed, it looks something like this. Something like this. You can do a lot of things with it. So the very first thing I would do here is to create a folder for which I'm going to write all my codes. So you can go to open folder. I already have a folder here called SP16. If I don't have folder, just basically created one. So I can just create a new folder. So let's say my folder is SP61. Since I already have a folder, it's asking me, do I want to merge the folders? So I can just say no. So basically you can just create new folders by opening them. So all your codes will be stored there as you progress along the way. So when you open it or create a new folder, you can basically create files. Okay, I think I should pause for a bit to allow people to get up to this point. So open VS Code and create folder in which we write our codes. So one thing to note, when you write in Python, okay, do we have a question? Okay. Okay. So you can basically create new files. So files are what we use to basically run our codes. If we don't want to run our codes in terminal windows, say for example, I can simply create a file, say application. So every Python code or every Python file should end with a .py. So creating a file like this, you can see such a file here. Okay, sorry, that's such a file. Just as we had expressions in, so you could create files here and all that. You can also, so this space basically allows us to write programs in Python and all of that. So it's multi-purpose. So we are currently using Python for this case scenario. So we run our program here. Sorry. Hello, am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Yes, you are. I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I lost your audio for about 20 seconds.
Okay, so sorry about that. So we'll be using this Visual Studio Code to write all our Python codes, and it's quite easier and robust as against you writing your code on terminal windows. So if you look at this, you have the place where you write your codes. Then you could see the terminal windows as we have in our normal CMD prompt or our command line. So the same thing we do on the command line, we can do similar thing with code editor, which is Visual Studio. I can write an expression, let's say to print 4 + 5, and such thing can also be written here as well, can be run here as well. So to run a Python file, use the Python keyword and then the name of the file. So you can see anything that is written here can be replicated over here. So let's say I want to print hello world. I save. I can obviously see all of this in my command line windows. So it's more robust. It's easier than writing codes on your command line. So you can write a few of codes and then execute once. So going into the meat of the matter, what I'll be teaching today, I'll be teaching you more of some of the syntaxes in Python, and we'll progress with that into building practical projects. So I don't lose my way. I created a notes here, so you see something like a note just to guide the class. So okay, so we'll code here, but this is just a guidance. So the very first thing I'll be talking about today, one syntax is what you call expression. So in Python, expressions are simply a single line of code that expresses to a single value. So it's simple code that expresses to a single value. So we can say a 4 + 5, for example, a print statement for hello world, for example, a comparison operator. Let's say we are trying to compare two numbers, so 4 greater than 5. All of these are just what you call expressions. So I can save all of this and then see this on the terminal windows. So those are just what you call expressions. The next thing we'll be talking about operators. So operators allows us to work differently on different Python data types, and we've used some of the operators. We have negation. So I'll take away this. Say we have number 5. You can negate it with a negation sign. We have addition. We have subtraction. These are all normal mathematical symbols we use. Multiplication, 4 × 5. We have your normal division. So we have 20 divided by 5. We also have what you call integral division. Take, for example, I I'm trying to find the integer value when 5 divides 19, I can use the integral division, which is a double slash sign. If you permit me, you can just run all of these codes just to see what they evaluate to. So you can see when you put a negation sign, it basically changes the sign of the value of the integer. When you look at normal addition, subtraction, division, then you can see integral division. So take, for example, when you divide 19 by 5, you can see it evaluates to 3. We also have the modulus division. Take, for example, we have 19 divided by 5. You could see what it evaluates to. That evaluates to the remainder value. So when we divide 19, we see the remainder value is 4. You can also do expressions like raised to a particular power. So you have something like this. You can see that's 4 raised to power 3 gives you 64. Now, the funny thing is, these are operators. They are not only used for integers, they're also very, very powerful when it comes to other data types. Take, for example, if I have print, say I have name, for example. If you could see, if we are evaluating what you call strings, we typically use a double quote. So if I am to evaluate this on Python, it will give me name, for example. I can actually add strings as well. You can see name plus name. So these operators, they don't only work for integers, and you can also work, some of them can also work for strings as well. I can also multiply, let's say I use the operator multiplication. You can see it evaluates name 3 times. You can do that 10 times and you can have the same value. Hope I'm not getting anyone lost. If I'm getting anybody lost, can we get my attention? Sorry for the hiccup initially. So these are operators. So very first thing we learn expressions, then we learn what you call operators. Now, if you have a couple of operators, we have precedence where we have word mass. So take, for example, if I have a statement like print 2 plus 2 multiplied by 2, it follows this order of precedence. So if the very first operator is a power, I will have a power first or exponential, followed by negation, followed by multiplication, division, integral division, modulus, before it gets to addition and subtraction. So if we evaluate this code, for example, we can see what we are having. You see, you have 6. So what's basically happened, we evaluated the multiplication first before adding the value as against 2 plus 2, then multiplying. So it just follows this order of precedence. So far we've learned expressions, we've learned operators. So would be having a small using some of the things we've learned so far. So looking at the practical application. So take for example, you have a device, say a pressure transmitter or something that failed at a particular time, and this time is given in, say, hours. Let's say 1423 hours, and you were tasked to evaluate this time to a more human-friendly time. So what does 1423 hours mean? So we can use some of what we've learned so far to actually work on this problem. So if we are given this, to convert this to, sorry, let's say we are given in minutes. Let's say minutes. We're given in minutes, and we have to convert this to hours and minutes. We can simply do print. So to convert this to hours, that's simply saying 60 seconds make 1 minute, 60 minutes make 1 hour. So dividing by 60 seconds, we have the number of hours. So let's say we can evaluate this, and so this was around 23 hours, but definitely we have some minutes. We can go further to say, okay, I want to print. Don't worry, we'll get to all of these symbols I'm writing. So let's say we so printing, you can see this evaluates to 23 hours, 43 minutes. So despite the fact that we've just learned expressions and simple operators, to see how powerful Python is. And this has a whole lot of other applications. This could just be for time conversion and a whole lot of other things. So I don't know whether there are any questions or any comments. I would appreciate feedback before I move. I appreciate feedback. Are we following, or have I gotten everybody lost? Sorry, I planned the class to be as practical as possible. Hello?
Yeah, Emeka here. I just want to confirm, like, will you share these notes you have on Python in the class later, just in case, I mean, just so people can go back and, refresh their minds on what you've discussed about the operators, the expressions, and the other assignments that you have in there. I don't know if you have plans to share it with us today so that we can go back and refresh our minds again, But for me, so far so good. I'm following what you're sharing with us, and it's quite clear. So I don't know if any other person in the audience has any questions. I mean, if you have questions, comments, suggestions, you can just unmute your mic and speak. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, this is Cyril here. So for me, this is quite okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. So are we able to follow the codes as we're going? Okay.
On my side, yes.
Okay, awesome. So I have a question here, and the question says, what does the percentage sign do? So the percentage sign, I will just quickly go up to where I have the operators here. So if you look at it, it gives you the remainder of a particular division. So if, for example, I have, let's say, I have 8, and I'm interested in the remainder of 8. I mean, when I divide 8 by, say, 3, I'm actually interested in what remains. So using this modulus operator, I can actually get the remainder of it. So if you divide 3 by 8, you could see, sorry, 8 by 3, what's left, that it goes in twice, and you are left with the value 2. So if I run this application, you can see it gives me a 2. So what it does, just the remainder. Okay. Okay. So the next question is, what is the difference between this kind of division, and this kind of division? So this is your normal division. So if I have 8 divided by 3, let me just write all of it together so we can just see what they evaluate to. So print 8 divided by 3 and print 8 divided by 3. So you see, starting from here, when we divide 8 by 3 with the remainder version, all we are getting is 2, because 3 goes into 8 twice, and then you are left with 2. So what it brings out here is the remainder. If we do the normal division, we have 2 to third, and that evaluates to 2.6666 up until infinity. And if we do this integer division, it takes only the integer value. This can be a bit confusing. Let me change this to 10 so that all of the values would be different. So, sorry, let me evaluate again for proper understanding. So, when I do the remainder division, you can see 3 goes into 10 3 times, and you're left with 1. And that's what you have. This is the remainder. When we do this, 10 divided by 3, you have the quotient, and then you have the decimal value. But for the integer division, all you have is just the integer value, and then it doesn't take care of the decimal part. So hope that answers the question. Okay. So we'll just try and piece up a little bit. We have a couple of other things to cover. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. So you must have seen me, I wrote name differently, I wrote numbers differently. So in Python, we have what you call data types. Just like in programming, we have what you call data types. So data types are basically the kind of input you can give to particular program. So in Python, there's what you call the primitive data types. Primitive data types are data types that are primitive to Python. Those are like normal data types. They are not very complex ones. So we'll talk about these primitive data types today, and then we'll go into the complex ones tomorrow. So these data types we're talking about today, we have what you call string. Strings are basically your normal characters, your normal alphabet, since you evaluate as alphabet. So let's say my name, for example, where I work, a bunch of anything can be a string. The way you evaluate a string is you have to put a quotation mark, either a double quote or a single quote. So I could put Python, for example. So all of these I can print them to screen so we can see this example of the string data type. So print. So I save, and then so all of these are strings. I can also take this as well. This is actually a string. That's why it should look like an integer, like a number. It's actually a string. So anything that is put on double quotes, single quotes, even sometimes triple quotes. So let's say something like this, and Ctrl S. Sorry. Let me refactor the code. So oh, sorry. There's an error. So when even triple quotes, so even triple quotes evaluates to a string. So you can see, so double quotes, single quotes, and even triple quote, they evaluate to strings. You see where we have what we need, what we use each of these formats for strings in later modules. So another data types we have numbers. So we have numbers. Numbers can be integers. So typical integers, you want to talk about the age of a person, how many people are in a particular party. So integer, just as it is in mathematics, we are talking of whole numbers. So let's say age, let's say age of the person, let's say it's 24 years. Let's say number of staff in a particular organization. All of these are basically integers. So you could evaluate this and you have all as integers. On that type of data type, we also have numbers. We have floats. So floats are basically decimal numbers. So 4.5, say for example, temperature value could be a float, and sorry, all of these are floats. Other types we also have what you call the Boolean. Boolean is another type of Python data type. Let me clear off these examples. So we have Boolean. So Boolean basically is true or false. So true, this is a Boolean, or a false. We just express them like this. We don't put them in quotes. So you can see this is also another type of Python data type. So far we've talked about 3 data types. We have string, we talk about numbers, we talked about Booleans. Okay. So I have a question here. Is yes or no, are they Booleans in Python? No, they are not. This is what is a Boolean, true or false. And we have a few other things that evaluate to Booleans. We'll be talking about them just shortly, just in a minute. But this is how you write Booleans in Python. Not true, not true as in like this, but true with the first letter capitalized. This is how you know a Boolean function in Python, a Boolean expression, sorry. So we've talked about strings, we've talked about numbers, we've talked about floats, we've talked about Booleans. Now we'll be talking about working with strings. I have a question. Okay. Sorry, he said I should repeat Boolean. So Boolean are just true or false expression in like we have in everyday life. So you want to ask a question: did it rain today? It rained. It's either a yes or no answer in life. So in Python, the way we talk about yes and no is either you say true or false. Did it rain? It rained. What does it mean to a train? It's true. Did it not rain? False. So in Boolean expression in Python can either be a true or false. These are the 2 Boolean expressions in Python, true or false. I don't know if that answers the question, just a yes. Okay, thank you very much. So now we'll be exploring these data types shortly. And so the very first data type we'll be working with strings. Working with strings. So we've spoken about you can declare strings by using single quotes. Let's say name. You can also declare with a single quote, and you can also do the same thing with triple quotes. So, and each of these have their own specific application. So just a reminder, they print the same thing. So we'll be exploring strings in a minute. So if, for example, we have, let's say, a string that has, say, a quotation mark in it, say, my father's car, for example, and I'm to print this in Python. Let's just try and evaluate it and let's see what the result will be. So I save and then I try to print. You can see it gives me an error. And if you look at the error, this is the error here. It says a syntax error. That means this is not allowed in Python. It doesn't follow the Python rules. So it's a unterminated string literal, and it's pointing to this extra quotation mark. So how then do we overcome this kind of scenario? So to overcome this kind of scenario, we can apply a double quote. Okay, I'm going to answer this question in a minute. Okay. So to overcome this expression, sorry, it wasn't saved. You can see my father's car. So you can see one use case of double quotes, and then you have a single quote in between. Now, let's say I'm trying to quote a statement in Python. Let's say he said, and let's say he did like this. He said, I am the winner. And you could see this is one use case of, so you have a single quote and then you have a double quote inside. So this is one very good use case of where you have to alternate the double and a single quote. So before going further, I have a question. What's the significance of the different colors in our coding environment? So basically, different IDEs, they allow you to identify when an expression is actually correct or not correct. So that was the one of the good use of having a code editor. So all of these colors, they actually mean different things. If you see this, for example, this green color, it's telling you that this very statement will not be executed because there is an hash key here. Hash key stands for wherever follows the hash key is regarded as a comment. So if I put this is a comment, you see it will not execute this line. So then if you have an expression that is evaluating, you see it in this, I think it's an orange color. Then for keywords, key Python functions, you see them in white like this. So that was basically just the ID thing. So it helps you know even if your code is not working, if it's going to give you an error, it already gives you an inkling to it. So hope I answered your question, Emmanuel. Okay. Okay. So the next, so you've seen use case for double quotes, you've seen use case for single quotes. Why then do we have to even have triple quotes? So typically, when we have a very, very long statement that is typically multi-line, we use three quotes. So I have something I prepared earlier today. So let's say, assuming I have a program that sends out an email to the course participants and I want to print it and I want to come out very, very nice. I can use my triple quotes to evaluate it. So you can see, hi James, it was great seeing you at today's lecture. Trust you had fun with Python. Kind regards. So with triple quotes, I can actually evaluate a very, very long string that is multi-line. If I try to evaluate this on using a single quote or let's say double quote, let's use a double quote because we already have a single quote in between. Let's say you can see this would ultimately lead to an error. It will lead to an error. Sorry, it will lead to an error. So now we know the use case for single quotes, for double quotes, and for triple quotes. So any question before we move on to working with strings? Still on working with strings. Okay. Another thing we'll be talking about, we'll be looking at some functions that work with strings. So functions allow us to perform a particular operation. So Python have some inbuilt functions for strings. One of such function is the length operator, len. So this is called length operator, length function, sorry. So with length function, when we put a string, say my name is John, for example, a string, and we evaluate this Python expression. Sorry, Ctrl S. Oh, I didn't print out anything on the command window. So it just evaluated and returned nothing. So if I print this, you can see it's going to count how many characters are in this string. So 1, 2, even the spaces as well. You're going to count everything. So I can print the length of, say, a single string. Let's say John. I can print the length of, I can print even just spacebar. And something like this, you can see you have, sorry, print the length of the space. You can see this evaluates to 15 characters. John is 4 characters. This 8, which is a string here, is 1 character, and even just this space by itself as 1 character. So this is a way to use the length function. Length function has a lot of application. Let's say, for example, you want a password or username to be at a particular length. You can use the length character. These are just all the building blocks we can use. Another thing we'll talk about is indexing. So indexing is knowing if you want to know the particular position of a particular string, you want to take a particular string out of a larger string, you can do that with the indexing function. So indexing in Python just uses the block brackets. So let's say I have a variable called a variable saved as name. Typically, variables are just containers in which we use to store values. Just like you have in your house where you have containers that you put different food ingredients. So, and then you label them. So that's what variables are in programming. So let's say a variable, I can give it any name. Let's say variable, let's say first name, and let me call it, say, John, for example. I can use indexing to get, let's say, the very first name, the very first letter of the string. So let's say print. So let's run the application, and you can see this brings out letter J. Just a note of caution, in Python, when we index, we typically start from 0 down upwards. So Python starts from 0. So this is 0 index, O is 1 index, H is 2 index, and N just like that. So I can go further to see this is the second character. So we can index multiple characters. So let's say I want to get all the letters except the first letter. I can simply write I'll write start and then stop. So let's say start. Let's say I want to start from 1 and I want to go up until the third character. So if you see, this takes only O and H. What it does is, this is J is 0. It starts from the first letter, which is O, and then it goes to second position. If you notice, it did not take N. Why didn't it take N? So in Python, the start is included in indexing, but where we stop is not included in the index. So it stops one character before the end index. So let's say John is good. Let's have something longer and we save. And let's say we want to take up to the 7th position. If I run this code, you see OHNIS. If you count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th character should be G, but it stopped just before G. So just a quick note, in Python, the start of the index is included, but the last one is not included. There are also other types of indexing. You can skip the end and also index. So here I have the start and the stop is empty. So what does it do? You can see it evaluates from the 4th position, which is this is actually down to the end. Similar thing can be done by skipping the first character and evaluating up until say 7. You can see it starts from the very beginning and ends just before the 7th index. So these are examples of indexing. We call all of this positive indexing. You could also have what you call negative indexes. So in Python, you can actually index from the back. So the very last character is given a -1, and then it increments -2, 3, -4. You can do that up until the front. Just to show that, I can do from beginning up until -1. You see, it goes all the way from John up until just before the last character. You could do further, -2. You see, it goes up until GO. I can also use negative indexing for both the start and the stop. So if we are counting from the back, so let's say we do -8. If that exists, you could see it goes, so it counts up until the -8 index and then goes to -2. Now, a quick question though. If I evaluate -2 to -8, can we, does anyone have an idea what the result would be? Now, you know, negative index starts from the back. So the position of -8, you count 1, 2, 3, up until the 8th value here, which is I, and then you go back to -2. But now I've switched positions. I've done -2 to -8. Do we have anybody that has an idea of what our results will be? Just 1 minute in the chat so we can move on. Will it give us an error? Just shoot me a chat message. Will it give us an error? What do you think it would be? Remember, we evaluate our index from start to stop. So it start is included, stop is not included. And for negative index, you're actually counting the position from the back. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8. So it goes -8 and then it stops at -2. Now I decided to switch it back. So I'm saying -2. Then go to -8. Go to -8. Obviously, let me just run the code so you can see that it doesn't actually, so you can see it's saying it doesn't actually bring out any value because it doesn't actually make any sense. You can see it here. It's empty. I don't know whether you can see that. See, this is the space for it. It doesn't evaluate anything because this is not workable. Okay. Any question before I move any further? Still working on strings. We've done indexing, both positive and negative indexing. Any question? Okay. No question, I suppose. So let's just do a quick, let's use some of the things we've learned so far. Let's say have someone, his first name is John. His last name is Landa. And I'm interested in his initials. What do I do if I'm interested in his initials? I can simply do indexing. So first name, last name, and evaluate this code. You can see JL. I put an extra full stop here. So you can see JL. This is the initials. So with this simple thing, you can see where the applications are coming into place. Other things in strings we can talk about is what you call escape sequence. And we're talking about 3 escape sequence. So we talk about escape sequence. So initially when we had a single quote within a string, we used a double quote outside, something like this. But we can actually use escape sequence to achieve the same result without using a double and a single quote. So using single quotes, I can achieve the same thing in Python. This is my father's car. So what the escape sequence does, once it sees this value in a string, it takes the next character as just a literal. So that's what we had. It just takes this as a literal. It skips the fact that this is a quotation mark and just put it there. We can do same for this as well. We have, so once you see such a thing like this, I can also use the escape sequence if I want to put a slash in the Python command. There's also another escape sequence if I probably want to have a new line. So this escape sequence is for new line. So if I run this code, I can see it takes this first and then takes everything after the escape sequence to a new line. So these are some of escape sequences we have. You can have something like this. Escape sequence with a single quote, escape sequence with a double quote, escape sequence with a backward slash, and you can also have escape sequence for a new line. Say I'm writing something and I want it to extend to a new line. You can also do that. These are some of the escape sequences we have in Python. Another thing we can talk about is what you call formatted strings. So let's say I have an expression, say I want to include an expression within a print function. Say print area of a rectangle. I want to print the area of the rectangle. And let's say I have a variable called area, which is a function of length multiplied by breadth, for example. Right? And then let's say length is 5, breadth is equals to 6. And I want to print this area over here. Sorry. So it gave me an error. The variables were not the same. So I have 30, for example. If I want to print in such a way that I have a string, say area of rectangle is area. So this is a value that is evaluated by this expression. And here we are printing area of a rectangle is this. If I try to print this in Python, you see it gives me an error. So what can we do? We can use what you call an escape sequence. So using an escape sequence, using a formatted string function, which is noted by an F, we can actually effect something like this easily. So
Hello.
hello, I guess I have it. Hello, hello.
Yes, I can hear you now. Lost you for a minute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was out for a minute. So formatted string can actually evaluate an expression within a string function. So looking at this, for example, you can basically combine a string and a different data type, which is our number data type. So by and large, these are some of the functions we could perform with string. Other things we can do with string, we have what you call methods. Say, for example, I have first name is equal to John, for example. If I do first underscore name and I put a dot, you can see you have a host of what you call methods you can do with a string. You can count, you can end with. There are a lot of things you can do with string. I'll just be looking into a few. You can check out a couple of all of these later on. So these are methods that are applicable with string. a host of them. So the very first thing, so let's say we want to use the upper method, upper. So upper, when you read the documentation, it basically converts your string to a capital or capital case, what you can normally do in Microsoft Word. So that would automatically evaluate to capital letters or true. So I can clear my screen and evaluate this function. You see, it turned John into a capital letter. I can also turn first name into all lowercase, and similar. You can see that. If I can also do maybe a string into like a title case. So let's say course. Let's say this is Python. So this is your typical, let's say this is Python, and I want to effect it as probably a book title or something like that. I can do the title method. So if I run the code, you see it converts this to a capital letter, just so I can have like a title case. So there are a lot of methods with string. I'll just talk about a few here before we go to other data types. So another one is to find. So take, for example, if I want to find whether a particular character is in a string, I can do course dot find. In this case, I'll put the particular string I'm looking for. So let's say I'm looking for P. So when I evaluate this expression, it will give me the position of P if it's available on this string. So if you count, you can see P is on 5. If I say capital P, so I want to find out what position is capital P in this string. You can see it evaluated to a -1. A -1 because P, as in capital letter P, does not exist in this string. Does not exist in this string because Python is case sensitive. Small letter P and capital letter P in Python are not the same. So once you try searching for a string within a string and it does not exist, it evaluates to a -1. I can honestly evaluate multiple strings. Say if I want to check if PYT exists in this string, PYT, I can do that. You can see it's telling you it exists in 5. So where can I see PYT? It groups this as a bunch and then evaluates as a 5. What if I do PT? So I know there is a P and there's also a T in this string. Course the find, and I do PT. What will it evaluate to? it gives me a -1 because I don't have this string existing. That's why I have characters P and T, they don't form a string. So we can also replace, there's a replace method. So replace takes in two strings. The first one is what you want to replace, and the other is what you want to replace it with. So if I evaluate this, I will have something like this is Jython. So replace method basically replaces a string with a new string value. I can say I want to replace py with j, for example, and then I run the code to see it has replaced py with the j. The last before we have to move before we leave strings is we can also find a string in variable. You can also find a string in a variable. Let me explain. Say, for example, I want to find, say, Python, or I want to find P in course. Sorry. You see, when I evaluate this expression, it's asking is P in course. It returns a true because it exists. You can see one of the use case of Boolean is this in course, which is so it goes to check and says, is there a P? Yes, there is a P. If I were to put capital letter P, you see it will evaluate to a false value. A false value because it does not have this particular string in this is Python. So just as we have, is it in a variable, we also have, is it not in a variable? So if I evaluate P, not in, say, course, for example, you see, it gives me a false value because it's actually in course. And I said, is it not in course? He said, it's a false because it is in course. So this, why it finds it, it gives you a Boolean value if it exists or if it does not exist in a particular variable. So these are some of the expressions or some of the methods we can use in strings. They are so numerous, you can, at your spare time, check a couple of some of these methods. I don't know whether I have any question. If we still have people with me, if you are following. Do I have people with me?
Yeah, we are with you.
Yes, we are with you.
Okay. 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 So another thing, let's talk about working with numbers, and we'll see if we can also combine two different data types, whether we can combine strings and as well whether we can combine strings and integers and the like. So let's go to working with numbers. So working with numbers, we've basically done a lot of the expressions we've done before. So we can definitely perform all our arithmetic operations with numbers. We can perform strings. We can perform division, integer division, remainder, looking for remainder, and the likes. So, but just to talk about two functions that we can use in strings, numbers, we can talk about the round. So if you want to round, if you have a floating point number, let's say 4.5, you can actually perform a round operation on it. So you see, it takes the integer value and forgets about the decimal part. Even if it's 4.9, you see, it takes in 4.9, gives you the round value. So if you do a 4.2, for example, it just basically rounds down. Sorry. You see, it rounds down. Another string on that number input function we have is the absolute value. So you know absolute value, if we have a negative value and want to take absolute value, just takes the positive value. So this is one way you can also work with numbers. So excluding the operators, you have the round function and the absolute function. So actually in Python, primitive Python does not have a lot of functions for numbers. So you have to use other methods like the math method, which we'll talk about in future. Another thing we'll talk about is how do you get data into Python? So all of this data we've been typing it ourselves. If, for example, we want an external party to bring in data into our Python program for us to, what can we do? We have what you call the input function. So working with external data, so if I want to ask for data from a user using the command line, I'll use this function input. So if I save this, for example, and I do clear, and you see it has something like this, asking me to put an input. So let's say I put an input, it ran the program, but I didn't see anything. So let's make it more intuitive. Let's say I print whatever is imputed. So it asks me, I put in my name, I put in, let's say, Elston, for example. It's going to print out Elston. I can even make it more interactive, probably give the user more direction on what to put. Say, first name. Sorry, it's not saved. Save it, for example. Say asking, please put first name. So I can say Elston. Obviously, I can take in values from here and save it as a variable. Say first name, I can say first name for later use. Last name, and add last name. And I can obviously tell my program to print the first name and then the last name. So and then I can tell it to print the last name. Let me make it a little bit more friendly. So I save. So I run the code, say put in your first name. Let's say John, last name, I put John Doe. You see it prints out John Doe. Now let's try and expand the capability of this to the earlier string we used initially. That email that I sent to James. Let's say I take this and I want to send a customized email to John Doe. I can do a similar thing. So I put first name, then space, last name, and then let me run the code. So let's say John, last name Doe. You see, sorry, I didn't put this format string here. Let me write the code again. There. So John Doe. So you can see the inputs from the code goes into this string and is printed as John Doe. So I can use this to automate. So I want to have a large amount of emails I want to send, and I want to be changing who receives the email, the people on the email. So if I have a list of all the people, I can actually effect that change. So I think I have something on chat. So what is the F symbol? So this F symbol is what you call format string. So basically it allows you to put in an expression within your string. So take, for example, this expression is a variable name, first name, last name. If this does not exist, it would evaluate this as a string. So for example, what I did initially, if I didn't put the F string and I run the code, you can watch this. Sorry, I didn't save. John Doe. So you can see, it didn't replace first name and last name here. It printed it as a string. So hi first name, hi last name. But with the format string symbol, which is just an F before your string, it allows you to actually put in a value that you can change within a string. So if I do this now, John Doe, you can see it allows for that. I don't know whether you get that. if it's correct, if you are good with it. Okay, thank you very much. So other things I want to talk about, which would be useful to us, is so what let's talk about some let's talk about Boolean before we go into some comparison operator. And I was thinking of go towards functions today so that we can tomorrow will be more practical or more easy to follow. So let's assume, so let's look at Boolean, working with Booleans. So let's say working with Booleans. So Booleans. So I said Booleans can either be true or false. So if I happen to run this code, you can see a true and a false. Before I go into well, talk about Booleans, I just wanted to do what you call type. So you can know what the type of a variable is by using the keyword type. Say print type. So print type So if I were to run this code and so one of okay, this is not correct. Error. You see different types we talked about: integer, float, string, and Boolean. So working with Boolean, you have what you call falsy values. Falsy values in Boolean. And I will just try and talk about the falsy values. So if I evaluate type of 0, type of none, type of an empty string, sorry,
I think print is missing.
yes, sorry. print type none. So to see class non-type, class. So this non-type, empty string, and then this integer value. I want to do some work with it. Let's say I want to evaluate print true equals to, let's say false is equal to 0, for example. You can see false equals to 0, it gave a true value. False equal to none. Sorry, let me just take out all of this. So false equals to none. False 0. Print false equals to an empty string, and print false equal to 1. Print false is equal to, let's say, true, for example. And let's say false is equal to false. And then I print all of these. I will explain the code shortly. So now false is equal to none. It's saying it's it returned a true value in a false value. That means these two, they don't equate. Okay, so let me start with, when you see an expression like this, it's one of the comparison operators. It's saying compare what you have here and what you have here. Are they the same or not? So if false and a non-type, when compared, you see it gives you, it evaluates to false. Sorry, I'm missing something here. False, sure.
Hello, Hife, can you hear me, please? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. You. Hello, Elton.
Austin, are you there? Are you speaking? Is it my network? I seem not to hear anybody speaking.
No, he's not speaking. I think maybe he got disconnected.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sorry. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about falsy values in Python. So when you talk about falsy values, so we have some values that evaluate to false, and there are just 3 of them. You have the non-type, you have 0, and then you also have the empty string. So if, for example, I have none, and I'm trying to compare none with the Boolean true, sorry, you see it gives me a false value. So when you convert, so if I compare it to true, it gives you a false value. That means this true and this none are not valid. But if I change this to false, you can see it gives me a true. So the Boolean none, so once I convert a non-type variable to a Boolean, it evaluates to false. If I convert 0 to a Boolean, sorry, clear. So I'm having difficulty seeing the command line because of the projection. So that's why you see the errors. So if I evaluate a Boolean, a 0 to a Boolean, and I compare it with the Boolean false, you see it evaluates to true. If I do same for a string, you see it evaluates for an empty string, it evaluates to a okay. Clear.
And Austin, please, we are slowly running out of time. Please, the entire roundup. We have already passed our 8 p.m. scheduled time.
Sorry.
Thank
okay.
you.
So I'll be running off very soon. I'm just trying to clear. Sorry, I can't see my command line at that point because of the projection. I'm trying to move. Let me move this out of the way. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Let me clear. So if I evaluate an empty string to a Boolean, and I compare with a false value, so it evaluates to a false. That's why when compared false and a non-type, it gives a false. That means when you evaluate a non to Boolean, is equivalent to false. A 0 to Boolean is equivalent to false. An empty string to Boolean is equivalent to false. If you do that with a 1, for example, 1. And let's say we do that with a string for false. And let's say we do that with a string for true. And then I try to evaluate. You see, A1 does not evaluate to a Boolean. It does not evaluate to a false Boolean. A false, as in character false, does not evaluate to a Boolean. A true does not evaluate to a false Boolean. It is just none, 0, and bool in Python, in an empty string in Python that evaluates to a false Boolean. Every other character, every other string, every other number, if you convert it from its data type to a Boolean, it will give you a true value. Okay, sorry. I know we are out of time. We would be talking about the operators tomorrow. Comparison operators, we'll do conditionals, we'll go into loops, and then we'll also go into functions. Hopefully, at the end of tomorrow, we should be able to start having interactive applications. But I have one question here. It says, does this symbol, is it the same as this symbol? No, they are not the same. While the single equal to, it's for what you call an assignment operator. It gives whatever value that is here to this variable. This, on the other hand, is called a comparison operator. So wherever is here, is it the same as this? Take, for example, if I were to print both of these, you could see what they are. So print sorry, 8 to 5, let's say, sorry. Sorry, this is not allowed. Let me do a print. So a equals to 5. And let me print. You can see the very first one evaluated to 5, the other one evaluated to true. So what this does, it gives wherever value is here, store it under this variable a. Why this one compared left hand side to the right hand side? That's what it basically means. Okay, so we'll end here. Tomorrow will be more interactive, will be more practical. So a few of these building blocks, we'll use them to do bigger programs tomorrow. And thank you for your time. And tomorrow definitely will be better than today. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Engineer Elstein. Thank you for your time on behalf of the YP committee for SP Lagos Session 61. I want to thank you so much for a great session with you, and thank you also to all the participants that have stayed with us from the beginning till now. Tomorrow is another time for us to go deeper in this Python training. We hope to see you guys tomorrow by 6 p.m. as well. Thank you so much. Do have a wonderful night first. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, Austin, someone is asking.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, Austin, are you still there? Someone is asking for your notes.
I will send it across. I'll send it to Kolade.
All right. All right, no problem.
We are going to make the notes available to all the participants.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Good night.
See you tomorrow.
See you.